Personally speaking, almost every man thinks about the Roman Empire's wars at least once every single day. Indeed, describing this habit as a mere symphony of mental reconstruction of the past. But what if I say there is a war in the modern times which will be serving as a bigger reconciliation for disproportionately more centuries to come? United States of America has had one of the most terrible pasts of any country, or especially here, quite an evil superpower. But nonetheless, the dynamic of influence, control, and vision was fixated for other competitive superpowers and developing nations, which is often essential for the overall harmony of people despite their differences. But in the recent years, something has really changed, arriving us, unfortunately, to this absolutely final battle for humanity, which will be deciding humanity's future as we move along towards the end. I'm talking about Trump versus Harris.
People have become,
but everything, nothing compares to what's happening. I mean, you
it is
have.
clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me,
I am not an American, and have no original standpoint as someone born there who have seen the degrees of its influence on the rise of certain odd topics of conversations. And that's why I'll be taking a back foot and I'll just provide some of my perspective to the situation in USA and why Trump versus Harris will be one of the biggest cornerstones in human history, arguably. Great empires rise and they shall fall. And apart from the quiet verbs from the god, this fact cannot be changed. In the whole duration of human civilization, we have seen kingdoms rise and burn to ashes. And a lot of time, it's not about the empire in itself, but its internal fire. A fire that is burning inside as if depicting a mirror, only for us to not be able to distinguish the both. In USA, there is mainly two sides of politics that you can be a part of, either the left or the right. Originally, or in the 1950s at least, the line to distinguish them wasn't very visible enough and it blurred when they both agreed to certain topics. But basically, left believes in progression and liberal ideas, whereas right believes in conservation. But that's not it. You may believe progressive should favor corporate structure, but leftists believe more towards progressive liberty and something like socialism, where government should be more involved. Whereas the right favors corporate structure and lesser government interference for them to be involved, which seems a contradiction, but that it's fine. The issues began when the idea started becoming very vague in its core values and very different from each other. As slowly time passed on, there was something that someone from the both sides believed in, which started causing some problems. And this great war we're talking about. Back to the current day, the West has fallen, quite literally. USA has fallen, which appears from the envelope of economy and common sense, if you know what I mean. It's nothing against any community or number of genders, but this was the result of that some idea did to USA and the left. Psychologically, being progressive is open-mindedness, which is unstable for growth, but at the same time a belief to grow, all by favoring distinct economic minorities too. This is a contradiction. All this results in is a mindset towards inclusion where you want to grow but with others. Basically, inclusion seems a good concept, but it's not natural. Here's what I mean. Left or a certain part of USA would have more empathy towards the weak or oppressed, and that resulted in hate towards the common or in power. This means taking side of the minority races and standing against so-called white supremacy. But all this resulted in is a spiral of continuous trials, which concludes to a time where minority is so much preferred and put on a pedestal, all while still believing it to be oppressed, and the other side being in supremacy. And no way right hasn't fallen. It fell many times, but not as huge, and at a bad time, and at such a rate like the leftist ideology is falling. Roman Empire was one of the core empires in Europe whose philosophy preferred logical comprehension towards life. Still, they fell into their own demise, which is unsettling because logical and verbal catalog should result with better decisive structure for the society, right? But how could there still be flaws? There has been a tremendous amount of wars and casualties in the past, and all of them stem from some deep damage. It always appeared that there was some turning point that fueled an ever-growing difference or some kind of banality to humans' apprehension of good versus wrong. And that's where the fall started. After the initial fall.
Trump was born in a wealthy family with a silver spoon, money, and privilege compared to the average American, and still ironically, he had an expansion mindset which explains his brash and aggressive identity.
It could be critiqued that he is narcissistic and unempathetic, but that doesn't take in full account an understanding of the masculine desire to lead and dominate, which he reflects.
And in the national terms, almost every other country was made or got separated based on some cultural or background differences of the people. USA whereas have no correlation with Americans being called historically American in a sense of sharing a cultural norm to the land due to the fact that USA is in entirety based on immigration.
And hence, the duality of politics lies without a cultural pivotal lacks individual patriotism, which is a fact. But ironically, this same narcissistic, as per some, aggressive personality to dominate forces Donald Trump to be a fit for this missing puzzle kinda perfectly. Because when there is no cultural preference, there is our empire that we feel connected to. A leader should be strong so he holds his ground, passionate about who he leads, and aggressive enough to move it forward. No matter the dirty politics or character flaws, a leader is defined by his Machiavellism act.
Kamala Harris was born having two different cultural backgrounds, Indian and Jamaican background. Where, yes, she did have a lot of resources like Donald had. She forced her way to the top in the law niche, which is commendable and it's respectful, no doubt.
But the whole point is about psychology here. If you take Donald on one hand, he's kinda narcissistic as per some, aggressive but smart because of his working background, understanding capitalism, which is USA's core. Whereas Kamala is charming, loves, have also worked hard, but not in the global corporate structure. It will be biased to rate them as per who may be a good fit for the president of USA without reminiscing the fact that USA does not have a cultural background, left has fallen, and USA is superpower who needs strong leader.
Taking all these measures in account and additionally the big crack point of left has fallen out at once, USA need a leader who fits the missing piece of lifting back left, putting balance in politics and in the international stature and take the lead.
But apart from the psychology, there are some weapons and some lies we have with these two so-called warriors or puppets. There are many forms of government: monarchical, dictatorship, socialism, communism, fascism, democracy, and capitalism-based democracy. And it had been well observed that human desire what they don't have. And as I did cover in my previous episode about psychologies, it is not hard to assume, no matter the form of leadership, they are wolves and sheep. Perhaps not just first-degree wolf and sheep, but multiple chains of this puppetry, manipulation that involve someone in dark, controlling someone.
The main weapon Donald Trump has against Kamala Harris is financial independence.
Before 2016, approximately almost all the rich corporate people or organizations funded or supported right, arguably. Because funding is a tool by virtue which you can control and take advantage of. But when Donald Trump came in, the whole dynamic shifted because he was a billionaire and someone who knew capitalist society well, all while taking off the cloth from tax system and a lot more. And slowly the dynamic shifted to what we see as of now.
Kamala Harris, whereas, needs fund, or so-called the left, because her selection wasn't on any debate or by Democratic Party's will, but she was put to be an image of the party's nomination. Or should we say, it was the entire left plus corporate world that was nominated.
And this is one of the major flaws here and explains why corporate world, except the obvious few, want to have left win even if their ideologies won't match. And another reason might be that the corporate leaders and business tycoons want power and influence far more than understanding humanity and its future. That's a valid theory too. But all of this mashed, mixed crunch is that it's a genuine war for humanity's future. And someone has some weapons and someone has some lies. In the present sense, Donald Trump has had a past and a very well-tracked, analyzed and reviewed resume. In comparison to the leadership, management and policies, Kamala, unfortunately, she has a lot less experience. Overall, the statistics are hard to compare because Trump was in direct control and Kamala wasn't. But overall, they both were in power from 2016 to 2020 and 2021 to 2024 respectively, kind of. Kamala Harris has been kind of supported towards an Affordable Care Act, while Trump has hinted of healthcare reforms but market-based. And on immigration standards, Trump has had an aggressive and has hinted on stricter policy, which should be an obvious for safety and all. The real is on the ground. Lifestyle is better or not is for the Americans to judge. Of how economics and living standards has shifted, it was good or bad, whatever. And that trend would continue or change with either of the candidates which America would choose. And as I did say, this is the great fall. Inevitably, the best option is stand around a relative perception of future at this point. Do we want a future of capitalist growth that takes the moral values back to balance, or a liberal stance that may or may not put life and human species to danger? Oftentimes men die, just like warriors in the battlefield, all alone, remembering his parents, wife and kids, his little one's nonchalant smile and the return of the soldier. In no way USA's internal matters are globally acknowledged like how it should be. It can be debatable, it's just another election in some country, but not. And I hope a lot of people have by now started to realize how crucial it is. I may be wrong as the time goes, but that's just a normal flow of judgment and prediction. And it may appear that a lot of right-side US thinkers and international thinkers like me may criticize progression as a whole, but that's not the case. Inclusion may be loved, but it has always resulted in some deep chaos, and presently, it's not looking good. Perhaps it was always expected. People are dying, crying of their sins, sorrows and sons. And in no way at such a time, with distractions, brainwashing and funded media houses and all this garbage, it's possible for an average human to think rationally. But brothers and sisters of America and the West, you have just one chance, not a vote or not a decision, but a chance to think. What would you do if it was you? What would you want if it was you? If it is you and if it was for the earth as a whole this time. Wars may end like they should be, but I hope this time you would consider its end rationally.